Sekali lagi kami ucapkan selamat malam dan selamat datang, selamat bergabung di acara seminar pada malam hari ini. Kami dari Bread of Life Homeschooling Community sangat bersyukur untuk kehadiran kita semua, dan tentunya kita dalam keadaan yang bersuka cita. Kita akan sama-sama mendengarkan suatu pembahasan yang sangat menarik, dan pembahasan ini akan dibawakan oleh keluarga Bautista yang berjudul Biblical Sexuality, kapan dan bagaimana kita memperkenalkannya kepada anak-anak kita. Seminar ini akan diselenggarakan dalam bahasa Inggris nanti oleh pembicara, namun bagi saudara-saudari semuanya yang ingin mendengarkan dalam bahasa Indonesia, bisa menggunakan fasilitas interpretation di bagian bawah. Tinggal klik saja icon interpretation di bagian bawah, dan kita akan mendengarkan dalam bahasa Indonesia yang akan difasilitasi oleh Brother Kevin dan Sister Elvira. Nanti sesi tanya jawab akan kita buka di akhir pembahasan. Jadi bagi saudara-saudari yang ingin bertanya, boleh silahkan ketik pertanyaan-pertanyaan di kolom chat box. Nanti kita akan bahas bersama-sama pertanyaannya, atau bagi yang ingin bertanya langsung juga dipersilahkan nanti pada saat akhir dari pembahasan. Dan kita akan memulai acara kita pada malam hari ini. Kita akan mendengarkan special item yang akan dibawakan oleh keluarga Mangi. Amin. Kita akan berdoa buka yang akan dipimpin oleh Sister Ina Tidayo.
Mari kita berdoa. Allah Bapa yang begitu baik yang bertata dalam kerajaan surga, kami mengucapkan syukur atas pernyataan Tuhan kepada masing-masing kami, sehingga kami semuanya diberikan kesehatan yang begitu baik, sehingga kami boleh hadir pada acara pada malam hari ini, Tuhan. Tuhan, kami ucapkan syukur karena Tuhan telah memberikan kesempatan kepada keluarga Bautista untuk membagikan pengalaman kehidupan mereka dan keluarga mereka, Tuhan, sehingga boleh dibagikan kepada kami pada malam hari ini. Biar Tuhan hadir di tengah-tengah kami, sehingga acara ini dapat berjalan dengan baik dari awal hingga akhir dengan tidak kurang suatu apapun, sehingga acara ini boleh menjadi kemuliaan bagi nama Tuhan. Tuhan memberkati juga jaringan internet masing-masing kami, agar semuanya dapat berjalan dengan baik sehingga tidak ada satu halangan apapun. Kami menyerahkan acara ini Tuhan hanya ke dalam tangan Tuhan. Terima kasih Tuhan sudah mendengar doa kami dan mohon ampun dosa kami yang begitu banyak. Karena kami mohon doa ini hanya di dalam nama Yesus yang telah menjadi juru selamat dan penebus dosa kami. Amin.
Biar ditelepon sama si Said, besok jam 8 jadi. Nggak jadi sekarang.
Amin.
Baik, untuk selanjutnya kita akan mendengarkan pembahasan yang sangat menarik ya pada malam hari ini yang berjudul Biblical Sexuality, kapan dan bagaimana kita memperkenalkannya kepada anak-anak kita. Tentunya pembahasan ini sangat penting sekali, khususnya bagi kita orang tua, dan biarlah kita sama-sama bisa mendengarkan pembahasan ini yang akan dibawakan oleh keluarga Bautista. Bagi saudara-saudari yang mungkin baru bergabung pada malam hari ini, keluarga Bautista adalah keluarga homeschooler sebelum anak-anaknya berkuliah dan terdiri dari Brother Alain, Sister Irene, dan mereka dikaruniai anak yang bernama Rafael dan anak Bautista. Dan untuk selanjutnya kita persilakan kepada keluarga Bautista untuk membawakan pembahasan pada malam hari ini.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to be back with you again.
It's been how many series now?
This is our 6th series with the Bread of Life Homeschool Ministry.
And it's been a blessing for us. And you got to meet all our family, right? Even the boys' girlfriends. So it's been a blessing. So you got their perspective as well and our perspective. We wanted to make sure that it's not just mom and dad's belief, but it is implemented with the children. And now that they've grown and they have their own lives pretty much, as they're going to college and planning a future for themselves, hopefully we can share some of our experiences with you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Bread of Life Ministry for allowing us to share this very important topic. And we have been actually sharing this message to the young adult for, not just young adult, but teens, from teenagers up to the young adult for a number of years. And the feedback that we received from these young people are, I wish I have known this information sooner, especially the young adults. They felt that they wish that they could have had an open communication with their parents instead of learning these things from the media, friends, and the community, or the world, I should say. So I have to say, this is a very heavy topic. And it's not an easy topic for us parents to talk to our children. However, it is a very important topic that we cannot ignore. So before we start, I think it's important for us to pray one more time. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, once again, I want to praise you and thank you for the privilege you have given us as a family to share about your word. But not only that, but I want to thank you for this community of mom and dad who wants to do your will, who wants to obey your principles. So Father, please bless this meeting. Help us to be connected to you so that we may be able to understand how to follow your principles the way you want us to. And Father, please have my husband and I speak not from our words, but every word that is spoken is from yours alone. And please be especially with Elvira and Kevin, who's translating for us. Give them wisdom, dear Lord, so that every words that are spoken are also flowing directly from you. We ask this all in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Okay, now we're going to share screen. And what happened?
I just want to say first that it's important for us as parents to approach this subject delicately, because things can be interpreted differently. And we as parents know that we have made mistakes, and we don't want those mistakes to happen again, especially when it comes to this subject of purity, sexual intimacy. These are beautiful things that the Lord has given to us. And also, the father's role in this subject is very, very important, because they are the pillar, especially when it comes to boys, that they know, because boys are so visually focused, that that the way we do things is very, very important. So I'm going to address the fathers primarily, and also how it affects their daughters, their the way they see things sexually, purity wise. It's very, very important that the fathers understand their role in this specific subject.
Hold on, I'm sorry. We are having technical difficulties. I've never had this before, where I'm having trouble in sharing our screen. And just one moment, I'm going to ask our technician.
Yeah,
Go
our
ahead.
technical support.
Yes.
Anyway, let me start. It's important for us about sexual purity, right? Sexual purity is what? Sex is something God made, and it's something to be enjoyed in the bounds of marriage. And it's important for us to understand that, and the way we present it is that it's a beautiful thing. It's something we cannot just give it to the world. It's something that God has ordained. Let me get my technical guy over here. It's not sharing our screen.
Are you hosting?
No.
Okay, so they need to.
Oh.
Whoever is administration, can you put us on co-host? We're
Is
not.
that the reason why?
We're not on co-host.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the reason why.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I believe you are co-host already.
What happened? Sorry.
Can you, you need to like quit.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but we do have to quit and come back.
Okay, give us a second.
No problem.
We'll come back.
Yes, that's okay.
Go ahead, Sam.
Baik, kita akan menunggu sebentar untuk keluarga kita dapat bisa reload. Kepada saudara-saudari sekalian yang ingin mendengarkan dalam bahasa Indonesia, bisa mengklik tombol interpretation yang di bawah. Nanti akan difasilitasi oleh Brother Kevin dan Sister Elvi. Dan bagi yang ingin menyampaikan pertanyaan, boleh nanti selesai sesi pembahasan, kita boleh kirim pertanyaan kita di chat box untuk nanti dapat dibacakan dan akan dijawab oleh keluarga Bautista. Oke, keluarga Bautista sudah bergabung kembali.
Because we're not mute yet. We're
Okay.
okay. Where are we?
We're sharing the screen now.
Yes, hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but we are back. And we are, so just like what my husband was sharing, is that we've always wanted to do it in a way that, oops, it's not just about one issue, but it is a biblical purity that is actually a matter of the heart. And so we want to focus on a much bigger picture, and sexuality is just a portion of that bigger picture. So we all know that we live in a sex mad world because the reality is sex sells. That's why it's everywhere.
And you can access pornography, you can access anything pretty much on the internet. And it is an issue. It's an issue with wandering minds, really. And the moment you start to leave your kids alone, we don't know who's accessing them. And we know it's a portal. And with that in mind, that portal is the devil's way of getting into our children's heads. And that's why we always say, track their phones. We should know what they're doing. It's important for us to realize that by beholding, you become changed.
Because the reality is, mom and dad, we have to allow our children to understand that we are in a spiritual battle. God wants us to remain pure, whereas the devil, the enemy, wants to destroy that purity by destroying our children's mind and even destroying our mind as adults. We're not immune to it. No one is immune to this. So this is something that we have to understand from the very foundation that we are in a spiritual battle.
See, it's not, we have to offer them something better, something to uphold, something to look forward to, not being settled for what's just here and now, because it's a dopamine in the brain. Sex sells, it's a dopamine in the brain, it makes you feel high. That's why a lot of people are addicted to pornography or sexuality or whatever else.
And purity is more than just abstaining from sexual relations. Purity is much more broader than that. What we think, is it pure? What we say, is it pure? The way we dress, is it pure? So purity is not just the act of sexual relationship, but purity actually is everything that compasses that. And we're going to talk about this even more.
Because the foundation has to be wanting to be pure. The sex, the addictions, bad behavior, cheating, whatever it is, stealing, the basis of the 10 Commandments, what is that? It's about purity and getting yourself to heaven.
And it is a sin that the devil wants us to fall into, is that impure heart and impure thoughts and impure mind. So the devil gives us so many impure suggestions in our thoughts and in our minds that even make us feel dirty before we even do any act of it. But we have to understand that it is sometimes just a temptation that we have to overcome. Just because the temptation comes into the mind, it doesn't mean that we have committed the sin yet. So when we were sharing this with the young people, we try to emphasize that it is purity of the heart that we really want them to understand. Because the biblical foundation that we're going to share from is in Matthew 5, verse 8. Matthew 5, verse 8, Jesus said, as one of the Beatitudes,
says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." And then, what is our ultimate goal here on this earth? Is to be with God, to have fellowship with Him. Jesus already gained the victory. Why are we running away from that victory? We shouldn't go to victory because that victory has already been won. We're running away from that. And blessed are the pure in heart, it says, for they shall see God. Victory's already been won. The cross has already been, done for us. The blood has already been shed. And then it's just up to us now to have that journey to see God.
yes. And this is what we need to emphasize to our children, that this is the foundation of our walk with God. So how do we do this in a practical way?
So, the topic of this discussion is how and when do we talk about sexual things to our children? Parents, don't avoid it. You need to be present and available.
Even though it is such a hard subject to talk about.
Yeah. Because it's always been taboo, especially being Asian.
Yes.
You don't talk about sex. You don't talk about, saving. I mean, everybody says save yourself for marriage, but, it's the process. I mean, how do you do that?
How do you do that?
When your hormones are flying.
Exactly.
And experts say that you need to start talking to your children at the age of 9. That's when they start to see changes in their bodies, things like this, and we'll go through it.
And one of the things that, because it's so uncomfortable for us parents to discuss it, there are some parents who thinks that, well, they'll figure it out themselves. Well, they'll know what to do when the time comes. Mom and Dad, how are they going to know unless we are the most viable information that they should go to?
Actually, they can Google anything.
Yes, nowadays, that's right.
And, when they Google everything and then we're not there and we're not the source of information, then they're more reliant on Google.
And not only that, but the devil has a way of directing them into the wrong sites too, that may injure their mind for a long time. Because one thing about sexual, what do you call it? Pictures, the pictures itself, it has a way to be glued in our mind almost forever. And it's hard to actually erase it from the mind once it's been exposed to us.
And it's important for us to realize that whoever's putting that advertisement, who's ever putting that link, or whoever's putting that write-up, right? They have ulterior motives. And they really don't care about your children.
That's right.
I mean, they can tell you facts and things like this, but a study is only as good as the one paying for study. So it's important for us to realize that.
So principle number 1, parents, we need to be present. We need to be available. We need for our children to know that we are there with them every step of the way. So I believe that talking about purity, sexual purity, is not just a one-time talk or a one-time discussion. It needs to be an open communication relationship that goes on throughout all their lifetime.
And I think that's a good basis. I mean, we need to speak to our children, not just about sexuality, about other things, because that creates a foundation to go to even deeper subjects like sexuality, like finding a life partner, how to do relationships. Because if we do not have a good communication foundation, we teach our children to be good liars.
And to hide things from us.
Yeah.
They do things. I mean, nowadays, just like what my husband is saying, with the exposure of all of the information out there, our children doesn't have to go to us for information in reality. But we as parents should want for them to come to us first before they go to anyone else.
That's why we build on trust, we build on communication, we build on camaraderie, friendship. All these things are things that the internet doesn't offer.
That's right. And the internet doesn't care about the future of our children, where we as parents do.
And it's totally different the way we were raised and the
Mhm.
way the children are being raised now. All of your children, I'm going to tell you, they're third culture kids. They don't stick specifically to the Indonesian or the Batak culture or the Jakarta, the Batawi, whatever it is. They're so exposed to the world that they're actually looking for their identity.
And I know we probably were raised, well, I was raised where we don't communicate this openly.
No.
It's something that you don't talk about to your parents. But mom and dad, this is not how it should be. It is important for you to be able to open up this important subject to your children. So how should we do it? From a very young age. It is important for us as parents to take our children seriously. When they ask question, take their question seriously. Don't look at us like, you're too young to understand. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But when there is that curiosity that probably starts from the age of 4, 5, even 6, Mom, Dad, where does baby come from? You need to address that question age appropriately. Of course, at the age of 5 or 6, you don't have to be so technical or so detailed about it, but it is where you need to help them see that is a good question. Well, let's go ahead and talk about this. This is what happens, when mom and dad, as husband and wife, when we get together, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 1, God says, be fruitful and multiply. So mom and dad's relationship as a husband and wife, God allowed us to produce you, which is your gift to us. Just say it as that simple at the age of 5 or 6. And when our children speaks to us and when they ask questions, don't do it in a condemning way. Oh, that's not something that you should even think about. Or in a way that they feel that they are being attacked for asking the questions, just because we may not be comfortable in answering the questions.
Or you make them feel dirty, or you make it seem like it's something really bad. It's not bad. It's something beautiful that the Lord has made. It just needs to be addressed in a way that in the bounds of marriage, in the bounds of love, in the bounds of God's approval, it is something very beautiful. However, outside from that, you can answer many questions.
One of the reasons why young people tells us that they can't open up to their parents is because all they get is lectures, or they are immediately being judged that they're doing something wrong. So that makes them feel like, okay, then, I can't really talk to them about something this serious. So our children wants us to be open and to be inviting, like That's the reason why they like talking to their friends.
Yeah.
Because their friends doesn't judge them. Their friends doesn't condemn them. Their friends understand where they're coming from. And each of us, especially our children, they want to be heard.
Mhm.
And if they feel that they are being heard, then it will give them more confidence and more a feeling of, mom and dad is somebody that I can talk to about anything because they hear me.
Sometimes when the boys ask me questions or young people ask me questions about that, I return back and ask them another question. For example, they asked me about, sex. I said, so what do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? Is this, I switch the subject because I want to know what they're thinking.
Not switch the subject, but ask the question.
Ask question
Yeah.
to know how they feel about
Mhm.
those things.
Mhm.
Because it's really important how they perceive it.
That's right.
What they're taught or what their friends are telling them, or
Yeah.
what is their interpretation of these
Mhm.
things.
What's their understanding?
Is it
Yes.
just for now, or do they really see the consequences after?
Mhm.
Many things you could talk about.
Because in reality, if we are not the first important information bearers, or there's their friends, especially guys. I don't know. You share from a guy perspective.
Well,
What do guys talk about?
about girls. And guys are very visual. So, attraction, that's why there's more female products out there than male products. The reality is we're visually attracted with clothes, with, facial features, so on and so forth. So, we say she's hot or those kind of things.
So we don't want somebody who doesn't have the same values as our family be the ones who's teaching our children about what biblical principle of purity is. Number 2, it's important for our children to understand, just like what Psalms 139 verse 14 says, that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that God is their creator, which means that they need to understand that as a female, as a male, God created each one of us differently. And the way God created our body is something that we need to embrace, not something that we need to be ashamed of. And even parts of the body that we have is not something that we should be ashamed of. I mean, I'm not saying for us to expose everything. That's not what I'm referring to. But some of us think that, for example, private parts are dirty parts. I think that's a wrong approach of introducing the way God created us.
God doesn't create something without a function. Mm-hmm. So we can take it from a scientific perspective, we can do it in other ways, but we have this thing of taboo. We don't even talk about certain things. Women, you guys, hygiene, I don't know anything about female hygiene. However, it's very important that you guys discuss it among the girls. Males, same thing. I could talk about being circumcised and not circumcised, things like this, and it's something that we should not be ashamed of. It's something that God given to us, and we can introduce it through hygiene or scientific reasons or function, but we have to be thankful for all these things,
and we need to call it by the real name. Yeah. Like, for example, breast. Breast is not a dirty word. And I remember I made the mistake, and it was me, where I called breast Didi. you know. Do you remember that? It's like when I asked the boys, do you want, he's like, because I breastfed the boys for many years, and not many years, sorry. No, Kyle was breastfed almost a year. And then with Kenneth, when Kenneth was small, Kyle saw me breastfeeding him. And for some reason, we got the word like, breastfeeding or breast is Didi. So there was this one time where after many years being out in the mission field, we came back home to the US. And at that time, I think Kyle was 10 and Kenneth was 8. And then we passed by and there was this store that is called Didi's Discount. And the boys, they were just like, oh, that's Didi's Discount. They thought it was like something that is just kind of funny, but yet it was like, oh, can you imagine having a store named that? So we make the mistake of trying to put
Substitute
our nicknames to the body parts, and it can actually backfire later on, So
the changing me, this is important because all of our bodies change. And we start growing hair in certain places. We start growing muscles in certain places. And when kids change, their voice change as well. For the boys, and they start getting taller. Sometimes I felt before that the boys were like, they were outgrowing their pants like almost every 3 months, outgrowing their shoes, things like this. And things are changing.
Now, it's important for us to prepare our children before they actually go through puberty to help them understand what's happening in their body as they are changing. So puberty usually happens between the age of 10, 11, 12. And I think it's important for us to start talking about puberty couple years before it happens. So maybe 8, 9 years old.
Girls go through, their menstrual cycle. It's getting earlier now because of the foods that we eat.
That's right.
However, they're still maybe 10, 11 years old, maybe some earlier. But boys generally don't hit puberty until maybe 13, 14, 15. So developmental-wise, body-wise, teenagers, boys generally, mature a little bit later. They're not as interested.
And we also need to help them understand the hormonal changes that will happen to them, not just in their physical structure, but also in the way they think. With the hormonal change, you need to share to your girls, to your daughters, to your son, there will be times when you feel grouchy. You suddenly feel that you're in a bad mood and you don't understand why. And there will be times where you think you're so ugly, but it's just thoughts that comes into your mind. And when you think that way, always refer back that God created you fearfully and wonderfully. And if you want to talk about it, Mom and Dad is here, and we're available for you to tell us about what you're going through, what you're thinking, what's going into your mind. So let them understand beforehand what kind of changes will take place so that they will not be ashamed of it, they will not be afraid of it, and they can be open to share it with you.
Yeah, that's when girls want to have some chocolate.
And even when they start to have pimples, acne, it's like, let them understand what's happening, the hormonal changes in the body. Because there were times when, I was having a lot of acne and I had such a low self-image of myself, and I felt like I was ugly, but I felt like there's really no one to talk to about it with me because I felt ashamed for the way I look and the way I feel. And number 3, we have to emphasize from the Bible that God is the creator of intimacy. He created intimacy as something that is beautiful and holy, not something that we should be ashamed of. We have to help our children to understand whatever is good, the devil wants to destroy what is good. That is why there is so much sexuality out there. And we have to help our children understand that there is God's way and there is the world's way or the devil's way. Where God's way is something that is beautiful, something that is holy, and something that we should not be ashamed of.
In the brain, it's really important to understand that the moment you have intimacy with somebody in marriage, outside of marriage, your brain focuses on an attachment
Yes.
to that person.
Mm-hmm.
That attachment is so strong that when God created it, He only wanted it in the confines of marriage.
Yes.
If you do it outside of marriage, there will be issues. And that's something that young people don't care or they don't realize what happens there. Male or female, it doesn't matter. It's important for us to understand the consequences so we can probably explain it in another way to our children. It depends on age, relevancy. But God created intimacy in the confines because of the attachment. It is a privilege that is only given to a married couple.
So I think it's important to show it in a practical way, visually, that will help them understand. Like, for example, in what my husband is saying, maybe you can put 2 things together and glue it with a crazy glue or something that is, almost like a permanent type of a glue. And explain to them, this is how God created sexual intimacy, where it is a glue between husband and wife, between mom and dad, so that they can remain together for their lifetime. However, if you have this intimacy before the time, when you break away and rip it apart, break away from it, because the glue is so strong, there will always be a residue of marks of the other person being implanted in you. It's not something that you can just forget, you can just erase, you can just move on. Because it takes, that person actually remains in you in a pretty permanent way.
That's why the biblical explanation for marriage is that 2 shall become 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we realize as couples, that there is that intimacy, and that fruit of our intimacy is our children.
And another way that you can show in a practical way is, well, first of all, sex is not a bad word. That's something that we need to realize, that sex is not a taboo. Sex is not a bad word. Sex is not something that we need to be ashamed of talking. Even now that the boys are in their 20s, we still talk about it when we are, for example, studying the Word of God. I remember we are actually going through the book of Proverbs, and in Proverbs chapter 5, it talks about sexual purity. And we discussed it as a family, and it's something that I don't want the boys to think, oh, you know what, I'm already 20s now. Oh, I don't need to talk about this to mom and dad. Or we feel, the boys should already know what is expected of them. No, we talked about it. We talked about it in a way that is pure in God's eyes and what we expect of them as young men. Because I have heard that young people, especially men, tells me when I ask them the question, do you ever talk about sexual things to your parents? And they tell me, well, my dad tells me, this is what they say, a young man tells me, as long as you don't get anyone pregnant, that's all I care about. I think it's more than that. I think it's beyond that. It's not just not getting someone pregnant. It's not just protecting themselves by using contraceptives so that they do not get an accident or an oops. It's a purity of the heart, a purity of the mind.
See, because when that happens, as a male, you're actually degrading the women, and that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
A woman is to be loved. The biblical explanation is that they are being treated like a porcelain. Someone, you need to take care of it. You need to love it. You need to caress it. And sex is not a selfish thing. It's actually a shared thing. Its intimacy is both for the husband and the wife. I know we're talking about young children right now, but it's not just, let me just say it bluntly, it's not just getting in and getting out. It's not like that at all. It's the pre, the during, and the post. I can go for a scientific perspective. There's hormones, there's mood, there's post-coital where there's caressing, there's a whole load. It's not just being selfish and trying to get it out. It's not like that at all. And the world makes it seem like that because in pornography it's all about that and about being selfish. And God doesn't want us to be selfish. He wants us to serve. He wants us to do things. So in the realm of sex, it's more than just the act. It's physiological, emotional, even spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
where, when you come together. So it's not as the world sees it.
And it's important for us to help our children understand that we need to prepare ourselves for the husband or the wife that we're going to meet in the future. And the way we can do that is for you to have like preteens, tween children, you can bake to bread, because this is a bread of life ministry, right? So one of the things that I'm sure you have learned is how to bake bread. So a good way of illustration is make two portions, not portions, what do you call it? 2 doughs of bread. You put the same ingredients on both of them. And just like each one of us, God already put the ingredients in our mind, in our body, in our hormones to prepare ourselves for that intimacy. But just because you're 18 or just because you're 12 or 13, where it seems that all of the body parts is already ready.
Yeah, like the female, they already get their menstrual cycle, their breasts are developed, things like that. Technically, they can have babies.
Mm-hmm.
Technically. And a male, when they start, having hormonal changes, the sperm count is there, they can be fathers. And we've seen the youngest one I've delivered when I was working in surgery was 13 years old, 12 years old.
13-year-old
Girl
yeah.
having babies. So it's
That's
babies
right.
having babies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for us to realize that even though all the ingredients are there, are they ready?
Mhm.
Is it ready? Is the mind ready? Yes, the body can be ready, mind ready, emotionally ready, so on and so forth.
And so after you mix all the ingredients together, you put one of them in the oven right away. And where the other one, you wait for it to rise so that the yeast will be able to work itself and make the dough rise. And after you get it out of the oven for that first batch that you put immediately, they will see that that bread is deformed. That bread is not growing or looks the way it's supposed to look. It remains flat. It cannot grow. So use that as an illustration. This is what happens when we do something that is not according to the way God intended it to be. It deforms our relationship. It deforms the way we think. It deforms the way we feel because we feel dirty. We feel sinful. And it's not the way God wants us to feel, where the devil wants us to continue to have this kind of a life. So if illustrated in this way, if we allow it to wait, to grow with that purity of heart, then when it is time for you to have that intimacy after you get married with your husband and your wife, then you will be able to have this relationship in a beautiful way, in a healthy way, in a attractive way without any scars. And another way that we like to share to the young people when we do our seminars in regards to sexual purity, this is a heart of a woman.
Or a man.
Oh man, yeah. When we give ourselves to someone.
Okay, let me backtrack. This is valuable right here because it's one piece, right? This is in the sight, it looks delicious, it's appetizing, it's really good, right? For whole wheat bread.
And then when you give yourself to someone,
one person,
they take a part of you. And, you know, I even asked them to eat it, to chew on it. And then, do you want to do it?
It's going to make me hungry.
And then afterwards, I ask the boy to give it back, you know, because we've broken up. So give it back. You can't give back something that's already been taken away. And imagine if this is an experience not just with one person, but with two, with three, with four. It really takes away the image that you have for yourself and even the image that you think God has about you, which is the lies that the devil tries to make us believe.
So what's the value now? Is there value in this now? Or are you just going to discard it? And somehow, sometimes we feel like this. We have no value.
Mm-hmm.
We've made mistakes. And this is the pitfall of why we need to talk about sexual purity to our children. Because their value is the way they see themselves will be totally different from what God sees in them. So the foundation that we're really trying to say is have them realize what their value is. Because their value is not as the world sees, but as what God sees them, because He's already gained the victory.
And mom and dad, I have spoken to broken young ladies. Young ladies are more open than young men. And came to a point where this young lady who was so hungry for love, and she gave up herself to her boyfriend. But afterwards, her boyfriend treated her with shame and made her feel cheap, made her feel dirty, to a point that it truly makes her feel so terrible and so low about herself that she became sick. She had an autoimmune disease because of it. So there is such a huge ramification of what happens to a young person when they think they're giving love, they think that they're receiving love, but yet it's just a trap of the devil.
Well, that's why I want to address the men, the fathers. If you do not give the kind of love that your daughters need, they'll find it somebody else.
Yes.
And that's a cycle that goes on and on. That's why it's important for us fathers to spend time, because the way we portray ourselves, the way we treat them, will be the one that they're looking for, whether it be good or bad, because they will always go to something that's familiar. So they will get approval. If they don't get approval from you, they'll get it from somebody else. And normally, these boys, I'm going to call them boys who take advantage of these girls, are going to be the one who are going to be wanting sexual favors, because it's a selfish environment. Sexual favors, pressuring them to do something that they don't want to do, all these things. So, fathers, speak to your boys where they can understand that this person is somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, right? Very important that you uphold the principles of who this person is, not just like a piece of meat. And that's the world portrays. It's a piece of, something.
Somebody to conquer.
Yeah.
Something to conquer. And one thing, Dad, you also have to uphold your integrity in modeling purity by showing to your children, whether it is son or daughter, how you treat other women. When somebody goes by and they are in a bathing suit or they're in a sexy attire, how do you react? What is your, because your children is actually seeing this, and the way you react is their model of, if it's an example to be followed, and most likely they will follow that example.
Well, also, as a male, how do you treat your mom? How do you treat your sisters? How do you treat your spouse? And that's always something that the way you treat them will also reflect on your children.
We always emphasize to our boys, now that they have girlfriends, it's important for them to treat their girlfriends with utmost respect. That's something I always emphasize. You don't take advantage of them. And I even tell the girls, I said, if my sons disrespect you in any way, you let me know, because I will do something about it. Because I want to protect them, and I want to protect my son, of course. But it's important for us to come across that all we want to do is to protect our children because we love them. And Mom, it's important for us to model purity. How do we model purity? How do we dress? Do we dress to get attention from other males? Or do we dress in a way that is modest and something that our husbands would not be ashamed of? And there's always context to everything. What I mean, when it's just the two of you, when it is just without any children around.
Get it on, baby.
So, it's like, it's okay to be sexy in that way. It's because your husband actually appreciates that. But of course, in the general public, our son and our daughter also sees how we carry ourselves as a mom and as a wife. So number 4, and this is the last one, like we said, it's all about the heart. We need to help our children by guarding their heart. Because in Proverbs 4 verse 23 says, above all else, guard your heart, because from it flows the issues of life. So how do we guard our heart? How do we guard our children's heart?
First, you need to develop trust. Give them value. You have to talk to them. These children want to be seen. They want to be heard. And it's important to have that relationship first. I know it's hard sometimes, and it's easier to give them a gadget. Like I was at the store the other day. This mom just gave this kid a gadget so he would be quiet. But the kid wants to run around. But the mom's like, no. You need to sit still and do this. We need to address them in a way that they can develop trust, they can develop themselves, and it's a relationship issue. Remember, we are the first representatives of Christ here on earth. So if our representation is not good, that will be their interpretation of Christ. So going back to sexual purity, how do we speak to our children? With understanding, with patience, age appropriate. For example, with that 2 years old, they ask you, where do babies?
2 years old?
Yeah, sometimes they ask, where the baby? And then you say, oh, it's in mommy's tummy, right? If they have a sibling. So as the years goes on, you can, when they're ready for anatomy and physiology, maybe at the age of 8, 9 years old, then you become more elaborate. But take it in stride. It's something that's going to come up. Okay, we're not scaring you, but it's going to come up and they're going to ask questions and things like this. First, take it to prayer. And then let the Lord give you wisdom on how to do it. And when should you, and how to speak to the children, ask them questions. What do they know? So on and so forth. But give it understanding. It's not something dirty. And then guard your children's heart from the temptations of the world, because they can Google anything. And when they Google something, is that something that you would want them to see and do?
So therefore, teach your children to guard their heart by helping them to understand that there are certain things that they can see, which is only something, what is in Philippians 4 verse 8, whatsoever is true, whatsoever is pure, whatsoever is in pure judgment, these are the things that they can see. And also the purity of the heart is in what they say. Guard them by giving them instructions, what is appropriate to say and what's not appropriate to say. And also in what you do, what they do, and what you hear. Because also music plays a big role, especially if you have teenagers and older. Listen to what kind of music they're listening to. Is it sexual type of a music? Is it pure? So these are the things that we need to teach our children, because what comes in is the one that's going to flow out of their heart. So again, our emphasis is we want our children to have a pureness of heart. For what Matthew 5 verse 8 says, when we have a pureness of heart, for they shall see God. And it's a blessedness. It will bring us joy. It will bring them joy, and it will not be something that they will regret later on in their adult years. May God bless you. And if you have any questions, please do let us know. We'll try to answer it the best way we can.
Terima kasih kepada Brother Alain dan Sister Irene Bautista yang sudah membawakan pembahasan yang begitu Baik sekali pada malam hari ini, 4 hal yang bisa kita dapat dari pembahasan malam hari ini, bagaimana kita sebagai orang tua harus dapat bisa selalu hadir dan present and available ya buat anak-anak kita. Dan yang kedua, kita harus mengingat bahwa Tuhan adalah pencipta dari seksualitas itu sendiri yang adalah tadi dibilang suci, dan kemudian kita sebagai orang tua dapat menjadi contoh yang baik buat anak-anak kita. Dan yang terakhir, bagaimana kita bisa membimbing anak-anak kita, hati anak-anak kita untuk dapat bisa kita arahkan ke hal-hal yang baik. Dan bagaimana kita dapat membimbing anak-anak kita, yaitu dengan with understanding ya, dengan kepahaman. Bagaimana kita harus berdoa kepada Tuhan agar dapat memperoleh hikmat, dan kapan kita bisa katakan kepada anak-anak kita, yaitu tergantung dari usia anak, kita bisa sampaikan kepada mereka dengan baik dan disesuaikan dengan seiring pertumbuhan anak. Terima kasih kepada keluarga Bautista, dan bagi saudara-saudari yang ingin bertanya, boleh silakan ketik pertanyaannya di kolom chat box, ataupun bagi ada yang ingin bertanya langsung, boleh silakan di unmute dan nanti akan dijawab oleh keluarga Bautista. Kami persilahkan bagi yang ingin bertanya.
Selamat malam, saya punya pertanyaan.
Baik, kepada Sister Mary dipersilakan.
Kak Airin, ini jadi saya ada pengalaman anak saya waktu itu sekolah TKA, usianya waktu itu 4 jalan 5 tahun. Nah, di sekolah itu teman-temannya sudah ngomong-ngomong tentang pacaran-pacaran waktu itu. Itu 2 tahun yang lalu kejadiannya. Ngomong-ngomong tentang pacaran-pacaran, lalu cerita ke saya, karena setiap ada masalah apa, setiap ada cerita apa, dia pasti, anakku ini perempuan, dia pasti cerita ke saya. Mama, temanku masak di sekolah ngomong gini, mah, aku udah pacaran dong sama si A, katanya. Oh ya, serius? Dia ngomong gitu. Iya, mah. Terus mereka mau menikah, katanya. Di situ saya menjelaskan, oh, anak kecil, masih kecil, belum waktunya untuk menikah, saya bilang. Kalian masih harus bertumbuh, kalian masih kecil, belum boleh pikirannya untuk pacaran, menikah, karena anak-anak masih kecil itu ya pikirannya main-main aja, senang-senang aja. Kalau kalian mikir menikah, nanti kalian bisa berat dong pikirannya, aku ngomong gitu. Terus, berarti kayak mana, mah? Iya, nanti kamu harus mikir berumah tangga, lihat seperti mama. Harus ngurus keluarga, terus nanti kamu punya anak. Belum waktunya kalian untuk seperti itu, karena kalian harus bertumbuh. Setelah nanti kalian berusia di atas 20 tahun, bolehlah kalian berpikir seperti itu, aku bilang. Nah, waktu itu anakku udah jelas lah, udah, oh iya mah, mendingan aku pikir main-main ya daripada aku pikir pacaran-pacaran, katanya. Oke, setelah usia dia 5 tahun, dia udah nggak sekolah lagi, karena memang kami waktu itu menentukan untuk homeschooling. Setelah itu, karena COVID, jadi dirumahkan ya, sis. Pernah beberapa kali ada main sama temennya. Temennya itu ada satu anak ini, dia cerita ke anakku, Ara, aku suka nonton video ini deh. Dikasih tahu lah anakku, video apa? Ini ada orang pacaran. Terus anakku nanya, pacaran tuh apa? Katanya kan, ini mereka itu ciuman, terus mereka peluk-pelukan. Ya pokoknya kejadian seperti itulah, sis ya, kejadian dewasa lah. Anak ini jadi sudah terpapar dengan video yang nggak bener itulah ya, yang senonoh itu. Terus aku diceritain sama anakku, kaget dong. Ara nonton juga? Enggak, mah, Ara cuma diceritain. Tapi itu kenapa sih, mah, kok kayak gitu, mah, katanya. Aduh, aku di situ bingung ngejelasinnya kayak apa kan. Lagi cuma berdoa, Tuhan, bagaimana aku harus menjelaskan ini, Tuhan. Kalau aku bilang ke anakku, Ara, kembali lagi, Mama mau kasih tahu ke Ara, anak kecil nggak perlu mikir yang seperti itu. Karena pikiran anak kecil bisa rusak loh kalau mikir-mikir yang seperti itu. Coba deh. Ara sekarang pikiran Ara tuh yang ada di pikiran Ara apa? Cuma mau main-main kan? Kalau misalkan Ara memikirkan pacaran, memikirkan kayak gitu gimana? Ara jijik mah katanya. Ara geli, masa cium-ciuman, masa bibir nempel sama bibir katanya. Iya, geli kan? Iya mah. Ya udah akhirnya dia sudah inilah setiap hari lah aku kasih penjelasan seperti itu akhirnya dia udah nggak mau mikirin itu lagi, Ara geli, iya nggak usah dipikirin, Ara happy aja berdoa sama Tuhan, nggak usah mikirin ceritanya teman kamu itu. Akhirnya aku memutuskan dia nggak boleh main lagi sama temen itu. Nah sekarang gini, Sister Irene, si Ara itu suka ada sesuatu yang aku lihat sekarang ini, dia suka eksperimen sama bagian tubuhnya. Kemarin itu lagi eksperimen ke bagian vaginanya dia. Pada saat dia pakai celana, dia suka kalau kita kegel-kegel gitu ya sis ya. Terus dia bilang, Mama, kok kalau ditekan gini kok geli ya mah? Suka kayak gitu dia. Aduh, aku musik lagi. Oh gitu ya Ra. Iya, tapi jangan ditekan gitu ya. Nanti vagina kamu bisa rusak, aku bilang. Nah, sekarang ini dia lagi eksperimen di bagian situnya tuh, sis. Aku gimana ya caranya menjelaskan ke dia supaya aku takut kan karena pengalaman dia cerita-cerita dari orang atau apa, dia takutnya masih ada tersisa di pikirannya dia, di ingatannya dia atau apa. Takutnya nyambung-nyambung ke situ tuh. Kira-kira gimana ya cara menjelaskan ke anakku ini sekarang usianya 6 tahun supaya dia nggak eksperimen di bagian itunya lagi gitu. Terima kasih.
Wow, yeah, that is some heavy situations that your daughter has been, that the friend is trying to expose your daughter to. And I praise the Lord that you are guarding her as a mom and trying to protect her. In regards to your question, curiosity is something that each person has. And in regards to the curiosity of her vagina, like you said, it's important for you to help her understand what it is. I mean, I'm not into details, but God created women with this, and it does have some sensations, and in a way that, well, the way 6 years old, how does a 6-year-old can understand about the function of?
Well, it's not just that. There's other organs in there, like your urethra. That's where you pee. That's, we can address it from that perspective and working itself towards what the birth canal is and what's this. And, you women would know more. So I don't have one.
But I think what we're trying to emphasize is it's not, help her understand that it's not a taboo. It's not a dirty part. It's not something to be ashamed of. But yet God created it for a certain function so that they understand that there's a reason God created it. So, but then explain it in a way that, because you know the maturity of your daughter more than us. So explain it in a way that she can understand, but not so detailed where, it blows her mind. And see, one thing about, we emphasize so much that dirtiness or something that's GG, I think that's a kind of a wrong approach to it, because then if they look at it as something that is GG, then it's harder for them to talk about it later on when they're starting to be more self-aware of themselves. So it's important to talk about it in a way that they can understand, but not in a way that is negative
or overwhelming.
Well,
one thing I want to talk about for those who have boys is this thing called wet dreams for boys.
Well, there, you know, I noticed that there's some young kids there. Do you think?
I don't know. You guys think I should talk about this? Wet dreams? Yeah? Okay. Yes or no? It's gonna come up. I mean, at the age of puberty, you know, these wet dreams, and I remember the boys, and they're like, they woke up one day and they're like, well, Kyle did, and he said, Dad, what's this? And I'm like, oh, you know, it's just something that naturally comes out every 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so. You know, a male needs to release these semen, you know, because there's an accumulation. You can't keep it in there, and it just comes out. It's not the same as a female menstrual cycle, but it's something that males go through that is natural. It happens. You know, it's not dirty. It's just something that comes out. And I had to approach it in a non-condemning scientific way, and that he was able to accept that. And he goes, oh, okay. I said, you know, you just wash it off, man, stick it in the laundry, you know, clean your underwear, you know. Sometimes you know, this happens when you have a dream or something, you know, things like this happen. And it's just something that's acceptable for, you know, it happens. You're normal. I praise the Lord for that. And I keep telling him that you're normal. You know, it happens. So it's just one of those things that, you know, they're going to ask. And these kids, you know, it's, I mean, you don't have to do anything. It just naturally happens. Okay. Any questions? Any other ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask questions? Hello, this is Tommy. Thank you, Sister Irene, for sharing the biblical base that as a Christian family we need to know. Yeah, I think that's very good. But I mean, with the current situation where our children, they directly connect with different kinds of friends, yeah, which is it seems like we have to be straightforward to them. Yeah, not only like, you know, just give some very because we're afraid of that. Yeah, so it seems like we need to be straightforward with them. So I mean, can you give like some hints at what point of time or at what age, like, okay, then we have to come to the straightforward discussion with them? We have one experience with our first daughter. The school informed us that they will study about that like 2 weeks before, which is good. Yeah. So then, like or not, we as a parents, we have to prepare for her from biblical way base first. Yeah. Because she's going to learn, I mean, straightforward and knows everything. Yeah. And in the school, I think at the grade 5. Yeah, they get 5 in their school. So like for us, okay, no choice. Yeah, but I think it's good if you can share like what kind of hint that as a parents, yeah, as a Christian parents, we need to be aware when we, I mean, you have shared some, but I think like what going to the straightforward stage. Yeah. So I think that's the question. Thank you.
Well, I have boys. So I give the straightforward, direct situation to my husband because he's the father.
when it comes to you have to remember, you cannot. It's very difficult to get them straight or direct if you don't have a relationship, right? Because the number one basis, are they ready to accept what you're gonna say? Because if they're not ready to accept, who are you to say? They're gonna say, "Oh, my friends are better information than you. Google has better information than you." So once you establish the relationship, then you can go straight forward, right? And it depends on the maturity of your child. Are they ready for these kind of conversations? When if they're ready, then you tell them straight, and you tell them the consequences, and you tell them, you give that bread illustration that we did. You said you had a daughter. I really think it's lopsided when we put the issue too much on the daughters and not on the male. I think the responsibility is equal. But anyway, it's the consequences of Eve, that women have to bear the children. Okay, fine, I get it. However, the responsibility also rests on the male. So you give them the consequence. You tell them it is. You first you highlight the positives. Sex is a good thing. It's only bound in marriage. But if we transgress this, look at what the world is doing. Look how many people get hurt. Look how many unplanned pregnancies. Let me give you some statistics. By the age of 15, 16, 49% of women are no longer virgins. 51% of males are no longer virgins. By the time they hit college, it's even less. 70 to 90% are no longer virgins. They've exploited these things, and it's going that way, right? We're actually losing the battle, but how can we as parents make it seem, see, like that other question of that lady earlier, or her statement, our children, they play house, they play with dolls, they play with babies. So at a very young age, these children are programmed that this is the life. We're going to have babies. There's going to be pachara. They see the examples. They see from their friends, right? This is all good, however, in the right context, at the right age. So the questions I had for the boys, okay, if you think you're ready for sexual intimacy, well, how about taking care of the kids? How about getting a job, finding this? Realities of life, there is consequences of sin. You have to address these issues. There's a cause and effect for everything. And we as parents know that, and we want to guard that. But sometimes our children have this thing of, he doesn't really know what he's talking about, right? Sometimes our kids think they know more than us. How many of you feel that way? Right? And if there's no trust, but if there's trust and there's a relationship, it all goes down to that. Then you can say, okay, well, this is the consequence. This is what happens. This is, you need to be trained first, so on and so forth. So I've always emphasized to the boys that, before you think about marriage, you have to have a skill. You have to be able to provide for your family. Because if you don't, this is what's going to happen. So set the foundation, have a communication, talk to them straight, the realities of life. Because as parents, we want to give them everything. And they have this thing called right to entitlement. They're entitled to a certain lifestyle that you have provided, not them. They cannot provide for this life because they are not skilled yet. So once we give them the proper training, the proper foundation, then we can say, okay, but like Brother Tommy, it's a hard subject, man, and you have to be understanding. I don't have an exact age, but when they're mine, after 9 years old, when they're teenage boys, then they start to understand consequences. And also consequences, whether it be good or bad, it has to be emphasized. Bounds of marriage, sexual purity, the way the mind goes, yes, these are all biblical, but that's our foundation. That's why we're Christians. That's our foundation, man. We can't be just like the world and say, okay, get it in, get it out, get a release. No, we can't do that because that's not what it's all about. I hope that answers.
Yes, thank you.
I also want to emphasize, since you do have girls, speaking to the young ladies who have given themselves up for their boyfriends, and it is a lot more than we ever thought it could be, even within the Adventist church. And I'm not talking about the world. I'm talking about within our Adventist church. And speaking to these ladies, what they are always yearning for is love. They want to be loved. They want to receive the attention. And they think that by giving themselves is the way they receive love because they don't get it from their dad.
Girls have this thing called oxytocin. That's why whenever girls come together and there's a baby, they always go for the baby. And you cannot ignore that fact. Because fathers, we need to be hugging our children. We need to tell them that we love them because they need this oxytocin, especially at a young age. If you don't get the proper love, caressing, in a good way, I'm not talking in a malicious way or anything like that, but to tell them that you love them, you care for them, and you want to do what's best for them. Very, very important, because it's not only physically, emotionally, there's things that happens in a girl's life, hormones that gives them satisfaction and contentment. And that oxytocin is a powerful thing. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Baik, terima kasih. Selanjutnya ada pertanyaan di kolom chat dari Sister Happy. Mungkin bisa saya bacakan. Selamat malam, saya ingin tanyakan kedua anak saya, perempuan 7,5 tahun dan laki-laki 5,5 tahun. Mereka berkata bahwa mereka punya pacar, dan setelah saya tanyakan, mereka katakan bahwa artinya adalah teman baru. Jadi katanya teman mereka banyak, ada laki-laki dan perempuan. Nah, selama ini saya biarkan saja. Pertanyaannya, apakah saya perlu luruskan? Jika iya, penjelasan seperti apa yang harus saya sampaikan?
So the question is whether the word pacar needs to be explained. Is that really the question?
Need to be corrected or not? Or
The
just
word
let them,
pacar.
yeah, yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So that I can understand what is. So yes, definitely. Because just like, because the words pacar has a different meaning for us as adults and for them as children. And so that we can be in the same level with our kids, because if they say, oh, mereka udah pacaran, mereka ada pacar, immediately there's that alarm bell that rings in our mind as mom. What are they doing that they are known as pacaran when they're only 7 years old? So yes, it's important for us to help our kids the meaning of the proper word. Pacaran, it's a boy and girl relationship for the older, for the older people when they are already in their 20s or, whatever age appropriate that you think it is.
I wouldn't even go there. I would ask, what does that mean, pacaran? I would ask the kids.
Well, they did. The answer is new friend.
Okay.
Having a new friend.
Okay, then you can call it whatever boyfriend or a girlfriend, right? It's just a friend. So sometimes we take it a little too far, but when it's their definition, they're like, oh, okay. But wouldn't it be better to call them just a friend, not pachar, because that means, another word. So I think directing their thought process to another angle, I think that would be better than calling it pacha. You could call it, oh, maybe you could just call them your special friend. This is a new friend. Find other adjectives or verbs or nouns that will be more clearly stated than just this notion of, oh, they're in courtship or they're in, a relationship. No, I think we need to address it, like my wife said, age appropriate, where they understand the true meaning of what that word means. Because whenever we translate courtship and dating is the same word. It's the same word. It's pacha. So going to the context of it, I think would be better than just calling it that word, pacha. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Does that hopefully answer the question? I don't know. I'm just blabbering here.
Oke, baik. Kiranya dapat menjawab pertanyaan dari Sister Happy. Jika masih belum jelas, mungkin boleh ditanyakan kembali. Sambil menunggu, apakah ada lagi yang ingin bertanya?
Well, it's all about jaim, right? Even as adults, you know?
Aku mau tanya,
Okay, go ahead.
itu kan tadi dibilang kita mau menjelaskannya harus ada figur, dia jadi harus lihat figur orang tuanya gimana kan, entah mamanya atau papanya gimana. Tapi kalau single parents, bagaimana cara ngejelasinnya? Kalau untuk yang nggak ada figurnya gitu.
I see. Ini untuk, do you have a son or do you have a daughter? Punya anak perempuan apa anak laki-laki? Hello? Or this is for any single parents?
I think it's for any parent you have
For
son.
any, okay. Yeah, it's just that I'm trying to understand from the approach. First of all, any single parent out there, I just want to let you know, my hat goes to you. Why? Because your job as a parent is not an easy one. You have to take double the responsibility as a single mom or as a single dad. And this is where we need the help of the family around us if we are a single parent. So for example, if you're a single mom, you need to have, for example, if you have a brother, or if your dad is still available, is still around, have your daughter, let's say, have a relationship with their uncle in a way, and I'm talking about a healthy relationship, where you tell your brother, I need you to be a role model of what a man should be to my son, to my daughter, or to my son, so that they can see what a man should be. So it is a correlation between you and your family members that your children will be able to have someone that they can replace as a role model if they don't have a father or a mother that they can use as a role model. That's why, there is that saying that says it takes a village to raise a child. It's true. It's not just you yourself, but it is a collaboration of your family too in helping you in raising your children.
Also, this is where the church needs to get involved. However, unfortunately in Jakarta, it's macet. Everybody's busy, everybody's doing stuff, and you need prayer. Jesus can be the father and the mother. Depends on your situation. And just having that relationship with the child. Remember, the verses that I always claim is the prayer of a godly person, the Lord heareth, right? So it's important for us to take it. We don't know. The church needs to be more involved, especially with single parents. And I always remember the true verse. What is true religion? Taking care of the what? The widow and the fatherless. So Yeah, that is true religion. So we need to help each other out. It's a community. You guys have a Bread of Life community. You guys know who needs help, who's a single parent, and we need to get more involved with that. Unfortunately, that's the only answer we could give. It's a very sticky situation. We don't know. Single parenting is not just divorce. It's also single parenting is uninvolved spouse. That's also single parenting, and also widows. So those are all realm of single parenting. So you can be in a relationship, you can be married, and still be a single parent. Yeah.
Thank you.
Terima kasih. Ada lagi Kak yang ingin bertanya?
Yes. I think, Kuya, I have a question. Since I have two boys, so these things like a little bit concern me. I ever read an article about homosexual, right? So some of these articles said that one of the cause of the kids get into the homosexual because when they are small, they somehow, some way, they are sleeping together in a room, or one of the case that I read like that, right? And the parents doesn't know that. And when they are grow up and they happen to turn into homosexual, right? And when they were asked, interview, how you happen to be homosexual, right? And this man said that it was happening when he was small. So somehow, some way, maybe this is not the Christian family, or I don't know, but it happened, the experiment between the brothers. So scary to read this kind of articles. So
you mean the brothers, like they are brothers and they were experimenting together?
In this article that I read. So
Wow.
So that's scary to read this kind of, it happened in this our crazy world, like you said earlier, right? World, right? I read this one. Of course, I didn't expect to happen, right? Because I make sure I always watch my kids every day. I never like, but then sometimes that's kind of feelings like, like there's a time when they usually just sleep on their own bed, right? But in the same room. Right, there's a time when my boys like they sleep together, right? They're young, they're 9 and 12 years old. I don't think they think that way. But should I concern? Should I, from like now, I will always try to set a boundaries like that. So just to supaya tidak terjadi, like to prevent this kind of thing possible could happen like that. So just because I have two boys and I ever read this one, I don't think my kid's gonna be like that, but it's concerned me. So, so what do you ever discuss with because you have two boys, right? Do you ever, how you discuss with them this kind of thing? Because of course they have friends maybe that happen to be gay like that. And I know my kids sometimes when they watch Disney Channel, sometimes they mention about this thing. They like guys like that. It's like, oh, I didn't have a chance to discuss with them what they know about this thing. But I think the kids realize that there's this kind of relationship, woman and man, men and men, or woman and one is something that's they open. So yeah, what do you think, sis? And I mean,
well, I'll give you some statistics. The LGBT community did a survey, and they said more people are coming out now. It's up to like 9.6% compared to a generation ago, which was 3.5%. Right? So there's a staggering jump. Now, that article is one out of millions. Okay, not everyone's gonna turn gay, and fortunately, right? And when it came to the boys, they slept together for a long time until they said, "Oh man, go away. They don't like to sleep in the same bed." It's a stage. And when they were in high school, they would be in a boys' dorm, and they would have sleepovers. Other guys would sleep in their rooms, so on and so forth, which is okay as long as they know their boundaries. And knowing their boundaries is always, it was always Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, right? And when it comes to these experimentations, yeah, they get curious, but if we set the foundation of what is right and wrong, not overly emphasizing it, because I believe the more we overemphasize, the more they get curious. So, I just leave it as a stage, have them do boy things. And it's an inclination. A lot of these people who turn out gay, there's also studies that say they were sexually abused, psychologically abused, no father figure. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of emotional baggages there. But if your kids are emotionally intact, they have a higher EQ, they have a higher IQ, they have a church, the probability is very, very small. So when it comes from a scientific point of view, the possibility is always there, like anything else. However, the probability is highly unlikely. So don't worry about it too much. Let boys be boys. That's not go into that side or the fear of that, because there's also chemical. The world is changing. If you look at Korean drama and this K-pop, you're talking about metro men who wear makeup and things like that, lipsticks, plucking their eyebrows. So they're exposed to these things. On what beauty is, men are catching up. There's even men makeup now, and a whole men line of stuff. There's nothing wrong with grooming yourself, but it's all about self-centeredness, right? And that's what they're emphasizing. So, have them serve, get them more involved, have them do boy things. It'll be all right, I think.
And as mom, we're always worried. I mean, that's not like a middle name. That's my middle name, Irene Worry Bautista. But we have to do the best that we can as a mom, and then we also have to leave it to the Lord to take care and protect our children. Because there will always be time where we can't be there for them. We can't control what they see. We can't control what they know. But we do have holy angels that's on our side, that's trying to protect our boys or our daughters, all of our children. So definitely, Mom, we're not alone. So we do need to just trust that the Lord also wants the best for our kids.
I hope that answers.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ada lagi mungkin pertanyaan yang lain dari saudara-saudari sekalian?
Saya mau bertanya kepada Kuya and Ate. Pertanyaan saya hubungan dengan pengalaman lah ya. Saya punya keponakan dan sedikit bercerita ya. Keponakan saya ini dia punya orang tua sudah separate lah sejak dia masih kecil, dan orang tua
Maaf, suaranya ke mute. Apa boleh di-unmute?
sudah kedengaran?
Sudah.
Oke, thank you. Saya ulang pertanyaannya ya. Jadi pertanyaan saya untuk Kuya dan Ate ini. Saya punya keponakan. Keponakan saya ini punya orang tua sudah lama berpisah. Sejak kecil, grade grade 3, I think, dia diasuh oleh orang tua saya. Saya pernah mengingatkan kepada orang tua saya bahwa harus ada figur ayah untuk anak ini. Dan keponakan saya ini, dia sangat dekat dengan ayah saya. Dia menganggap kakeknya ini adalah bapaknya. Even bapaknya itu masih hidup, dia tidak terlalu peduli dengan ayahnya itu. Dia menganggap bahwa kakeknya ini yang sudah membesarkan dia. Dan tahun lalu, ayah saya meninggal. Dia sangat stres betul. Sampai-sampai kami harus bawa dia ke rumah sakit karena ada sedikit gangguan di dia punya jantung. Itu menurut dokter bahwa dia punya stres yang sangat tinggi, kehilangan figur ayah dalam hidupnya. Pertanyaan saya adalah, bagaimana memberikan sosok atau figur ayah dalam kehidupan keponakan saya ini? Karena kami tidak satu rumah dengan mereka, karena keponakan saya ini tinggal dengan mama saya sekarang. Dan dia juga tidak terlalu dekat dengan mamahnya, because mamanya punya planning untuk married lagi. Jadi dia benar-benar seperti kehilangan figur orang tua dalam dirinya. Saya sangat concern sekali sama dia karena kita tahu sekeliling kita benar-benar menawarkan hal-hal yang membuat anak-anak muda kita bisa jauh daripada Tuhan. Saya ingin keponakan saya ini bisa menjadi lelaki sejati, lelaki yang takut akan Tuhan. Jadi saya minta tolong Ate untuk bagaimana memberikan figur ayah, padahal ayahnya sendiri tidak pernah lagi untuk peduli. Dia sudah kehilangan sosok kakek yang selama ini dianggap sebagai sosok ayah yang sangat peduli dengan dia. Maraming salamat po.
Boleh tanya, keponakannya umur berapa?
17-year-old, Ate.
17 years old. Okay. And that is, I think it's such a traumatic experience for him because number one, he has already felt the rejection from the father. And that's what a child goes through when they have an experience of the parents separated. And then the grandfather, died last year. That makes such a huge impact on him. So what can you do? You need to build a relationship with him, with your husband. Your husband needs to step in and to be the father figure that he's longing for. And how do you do that even though you don't live together? Now we can communicate through WhatsApp, through video call. That engagement of, I am interested in you. I care about you. I want to know what's going on in your life. That needs to be, he needs to understand that you're there. I just lost somebody I love. I don't have someone to replace him. I need someone to replace him. And your husband can be that person that can replace that hole in his heart that he needs to have.
I grew up in my grandparents' house, and I lost my grandfather when I was 18, 19, like that. And there was a strong attachment because I've lived with him all my life. And when he died, I'm not close to my dad. It's getting better now, but I was always attached to my grandfather. So allow him to go through the grieving process. Allow him to go through the fact that, these things happen. Accept that. But don't push him to get over it, because everybody has their own time of grieving. And by giving him space, maybe, I know he's already had like stress and stuff, but allow him to grieve and just be there when he needs you, being available for him. And that's when you could start a relationship. Right now, I have adopted kids. I have many adopted kids, and they've lost their fathers or they've lost their mom, or both sides. And I call them once in a while. They say, I just want to say I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Simple words like that. I mean, they live in different states and different countries sometimes. And just having yourself available for them. And they will come when they are ready. Always, it's a two-way. When we push ourselves too much, they tend to regress. And that's what I did. A lot of people wanted to be father figures to me. And I'm like, no, you can't replace my grandfather. No, I've already set out an attachment. It's not going to work. I want my grandfather, right? That's the thing that I was always struggling with until I was ready to accept that he has moved on, life continues, and then I was ready to build my relationship back with my father. But you have to give it time. It doesn't happen overnight like everything else. It's relational. Allow him to grieve. Just be there for him. Talk to him. Just tell him I love you. I'm here for you. Keep repeating that, and then he will believe that.
That's right.
Okay? I hope that helps.
Thank you, Ate and Kuya.
You're welcome.
Terima kasih. Apakah ada lagi yang bertanya? Mungkin satu pertanyaan lagi. Jika ada yang bertanya, silakan. Jika
So I have one last one. Tommy again. Sorry, Ate Irene. My second daughter, we still enjoy sleeping together with her. Yes, she's grade 6. So do you have any advice? I mean, at what age sometimes we have to we have to separate. But basically, they have their own, but sometimes as Asia or Indonesian parents, we still love to hug them, and then sometimes they sleep together with me and my wife. So any advice on that for her better growing mentally, and because we believe that also has a good impact, or sometimes even maybe not a good impact. So do you have any advice for that?
My thing is, hold them as long as you can, because pretty soon you're going to have to make an appointment to go see them. Like me, I have to go make an appointment with my son to go see them. But anyway, there's just, concerns, obviously. Don't sleep with your daughter alone. Always have your wife there. It's just, it's just, I don't want her to have that an example later on. I'm not saying it in a malicious way. I'm saying it, guard the heart, guard the heart. And when it starts to feel awkward and you can tell and she can kind of tell, then it's time to kick them out. I mean, I'm saying it as pleasantly as I can, but when things just start getting awkward and things like that, and it's time to say, okay, honey, it's time for you to go. And it's not that mommy and daddy loves you.
It doesn't
love you. We can. The good transition would be, well, let me snuggle, mommy and daddy snuggle with you in your bed, and then we're gonna get out.
I agree.
Okay, because that's what we used to do. It was a transitioning stage where, okay, we'll snuggle you in, we'll tell you love you, or read a book or whatever, spend time with you, and then mommy and daddy's gonna go have some intimacy time.
Okay. Good.
Right?
Yes.
Because
Thank you.
the
Thank
child
you.
being in the middle is a great birth control.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, I hope that answers your question, Dami. I hope.
Yeah. Sure.
You will know, man. You will know.
Yeah.
And transition them. Tell them you love them. Hold them as much as you can. I'm telling you, my son's gonna leave me in August. I won't see him for 2 years. Things like this. But yeah, that's what happens. It's called empty nesters.
Okay.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Baik, terima kasih untuk pertanyaan yang sudah ditanyakan, dan terima kasih juga untuk keluarga Baptista, Brother Alan, Irene. Thank you very much for the wonderful message, and we pray that God bless you, family abundantly.